quick run through of A Christmas Carol. So stave 1 is all about Marley's ghost. This is where Scrooge is described as cold, as solitary as an oyster. Everybody runs away from him. So we learn, first of all, that old Marley was dead as a doornail. That's an important plot point because structurally we need to be able to believe in the ghost. So if we know he's dead, that's the first lines of the novella, then we know that. We also have 2 similes, solitary as an oyster, hard and sharp as flint. And these draw attention to the fact that Scrooge is described as miserly. He's mean. He is a character that everybody runs away from. However, he's got the potential for change. This is a very cold chapter. It's Christmas Eve and the clerk's fire, so Bob, his fire is so small, he only has 1 coal on it. Fred, however, is described as an antithesis, opposite to Scrooge's character. His eyes sparkle and he glows and he comes in and says, "Merry Christmas, Uncle." But Scrooge hates Christmas and he says, "Bah humbug." So he's very, very negative. Then 2 portly gentlemen enter and they say, "Can you help the poor?" However, Scrooge believes, Dickens shows that Scrooge believes in Malthus's theory of population. He believes that the poor laws are sufficient. The prisons and the workhouses are sufficient. And he says, why don't we just decrease the surplus population? That will be a great idea, won't it? But of course we know that shows that he's not compassionate towards the poor. Now, Bob's really hopeful for Christmas Day off, but Scrooge says no. He's got no Christian spirit. He only cares about money. And he says Christmas Day is a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket. So Bob, even though he doesn't get a day off, he has to be back straight away. Well, he does get Christmas Day off, but he has to be back straight away after. He runs home and he's so happy. It's Christmas time. And he goes off to Bob's house. And Bob's house is full of his family. Now, Scrooge goes home. And his home is dark and cold. He only has a little candle because he says darkness is cheap and Scrooge liked it. Now there, he doesn't see a knocker but Marley's face and he sees the ghost of Marley. Now Marley was his own old business partner and Marley is a warning. And the quote to Marley is, "I wear the chain I forged in life." Now Marley is a warning to the consequences of the way that if you kind of live a life without caring for others, if you live a life where you only care about making money, a capitalist, kind of a selfish capitalist kind of viewpoint, then you will suffer and you'll have to walk around forever with chains. And he says, "I'm here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate." At the end of stave 1, interestingly, he starts to show straight away because he can't say humbug at the end of stave 1. He finds it difficult to say, so Marley's already shocked him. Right, stave 2, we've got the ghost of Christmas past, like a child wearing a tunic of purest white, strange figure, and it's got this light. It's almost like shining a light, warming him up a little bit. And he visits Scrooge in his bed. And they go and see lots of memories. The first memory is of school. Scrooge at school and he's crying and neglected by his friends is left there still. Now the description of Scrooge is that he sobbed, so immediately we see a thawing of his character. He's feeling a little bit sadder. Then we've got a memory of Fan, Scrooge's sister, and it says, "I've come to bring you home, dear brother." So here he understands the importance of family and how family has brought him joy as well. We then think about memory 3, which is the memory of Fezziwig. Now, Fezziwig shakes everybody's hand. He is an example of a good capitalist. He's a positive... it says, "A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. He's a good boss. He's a role model." And it says, "The happiness he gives is great as if it cost a fortune." So Scrooge was an apprentice at Fezziwig's. And we see another moment of change because he says, "I should like to be able to say a word to my clerk." So he says he'd like to say a word to Bob Cratchit. So he's already thinking about his treatment and the way he's been as a boss there. Now Dickens then shows us the memory of Belle. Belle was engaged to Scrooge, and she says, "You are changed. Another idol has displaced me, a golden one." So Belle signifies kind of like Scrooge's ignorance of love, the fact that he's lost this. This is why he's become isolated. And this memory is painful because Scrooge says, "Why do you delight to torture me?" He shows him one more shadow. He shows him a horrible scene of a family, a happy family, of Belle with her daughter and her husband. And he kind of feels incredibly sad. We see regret, we feel empathy for him. Now, the reason why Dickens does this is because if we only saw him as a villain like we do in Stave 1, we would feel no empathy for him. We've got to feel empathy for him because the reader has got to feel like, just like Scrooge, anyone can change. It helps with Dickens's message. So he kind of says another creature might have called him father. He wishes that he could have been a father to somebody. Right, Stave 3, the second of the three spirits. It's Christmas Day, and enter the ghost of Christmas Present. Now, he is larger than life, a jolly giant, cheery voice, sparkling eyes, glowing. And he says, "Come in and know me better." And he goes around, and everywhere he goes, lots of fun and jolly people. And he sprinkles Christmas spirit to a poor one most because it needs it the most. So he's kind of showing the importance of Christmas, but he's also showing that Christmas is everywhere. The Ghost of Christmas Present has sympathy with all poor men, and they travel to the Cratchits. Now, the Ghost of Christmas Present blessed this four-roomed house, and there's loads and loads of characters in the Cratchits house. They all live here. They all help to cook Christmas dinner, and the image of the Cratchits family is that one murmur of delight rose round the board, that they all love kind of Christmas dinner. That it's a symbol of their unity, that they don't all love Christmas dinner, but they all love their family. They all care for each other. They're caring, and there's a tiny, tiny, tiny little pudding, but they don't care. They think it's amazing. And there's a fire, and that's important too, because fire symbolises kind of warmth, generosity, or Christmas spirit, or anything kind of good. And Tiny Tim says, "God bless us, everyone." So the Cratchits are happy, grateful, and pleased with one another. They love one another. And Scrooge kind of looks at this, and he's kind of really taken aback, especially by Tiny Tim. And he says, "Tell me if Tiny Tim will live," because he sees that he's quite weak. And Scrooge cares about him. And the Ghost of Christmas, the Jolly Giant, the Ghost of Christmas Present, repeats the words, "If he like to, he'd better do it and decrease the surplus population." And this makes Scrooge hang his head in shame. That verb, he hungs his head, the pity, the shame, the kind of like regret he feels for his words. The ghost then takes him all the way around, lighthouse, boat, miners, and the Christmas spirit is everywhere. There's fire everywhere. Fred's house, there's a party, and he hears other people's opinions of himself. "Ha ha ha," says Fred. "They're all having a party, but other opinions. His wealth is no use of him. He doesn't do any good with it." That's what people comment on. And Scrooge loved the party. He found it really fun, and he wanted, as he was looking in on it, he begged to be about to stay. But the ghost says no, and then reveals to him what's inside his coat. There's a boy, ignorance, and the girl, want, and he says they are man's. And remember, this is the allegory. This is the bigger message, that these represent the richest treatment of the poor. They represent all the social problems in society. The social problems are awful because the situation is so bad that these children do not look like children. They almost look like animals. And Scrooge says, "Have they no refuge or resource?" And the ghost says, "Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?" It's a repeat of Stave 1 and also a repeat of earlier in this same stave. So that's the end. Doom. It's a sign of doom. And Scrooge realises that he needs to be the change. So the last of the three spirits is Stave 4. It's the ghost of Christmas yet to come. So he doesn't talk. He's a phantom, slowly, gravely, silently walking. And Scrooge says he fears him more than any other spectre. And he says, "I hope to be like another man." Now, Scrooge has changed from before. He wants to be better. But However, the ghost shows him visions of the future. The first vision is men of business, and the only thing they say is an old Scratch has got his own at last. Now, what that means is Scrooge is dead, but it shows that his death has no effect on people. They don't even talk about it. They go on and talk about the weather. Then there are thieves that are stealing from his house. So they call him a wicked old screw, and they don't really care because they get some stuff from him. Then we hear another family who's in Scrooge's debt, and the only emotion they feel was one of pleasure. Yay, he's dead. So the impact of Scrooge's death is basically no one really cares. However, there's something even darker in this scene. We see Tiny Tim's potential death. The Cratchits are quiet, very quiet, still as statues. So, that's a quote to describe the children. And Bob says, "We should not quarrel easy, I'm very happy." So even at a tragic time, the Cratchits show love for one another. Even though Bob says, "My little child cried," Bob, he broke down. He tries to be happy for his family. That's amazing. It shows their spirit. And they travel to a final vision, and this is the gravestone. They see that Scrooge is not in his workplace, and then they go to a gravestone. But Scrooge hasn't realised this whole time. It's a whole load of irony. He doesn't realise until he sees his name on the gravestone that this is him. So he says, "Oh, no, I will honour Christmas in my heart. I will live in the past, present and the future." And he says, "Tell me I may sponge away the writing on the stone." And he prays for the ghost of Chris, and he prays for kind of this to happen. The ghost disappears, and then he is happy. So the end of it, the ghost of Christmas. Oh, there's no ghost. There's no ghost. The ghosts have all gone, and he jumps out of bed. He's happy as an angel, light as a feather, and he's in a splendid laugh. And he realises that it's Christmas Day. He hasn't missed anything. There's golden sunlight, the pathetic fallacy, heavenly, and he does loads of positive things. So he gives the boy, sends a boy to buy a prized turkey to Bob Cratchit. That's my turkey. He's happy. He says Merry Christmas to everyone. He gives money to the two portly gentlemen. He gives a large donation, and he goes to Fred's house for a party. He raises Bob's salary. He says make up your fires, and he says to Tiny Tim that he'll be a second father. And he says he knows how to treat Christmas well all year round. Okay, so he says, "God bless us, everyone." So that's Christmas Day. He says that he'll go round to Fred's. Yep, so he's just basically really, really merry. That's him right at the end. Happy. All done.